It's true that marketing can often oversell. Ultimately, the role of marketing is to grow the business, so sometimes it's easy to get into like a promotional selling mode. And when so many companies promise the world, the effect on customers can be deadening. And it's why something that really stands out nowadays is when a company speaks truthfully. And I think that's why we're seeing so many of these brands pop up like Oatly, Liquid Death, and Duolingo. In today's episode, I'm talking to someone who does this, but in the B2B sector. Charlie Gilbert, Head of Brand and Communications at Volt. As we discuss, it's especially crucial to speak honestly in their sector, because not only is the topic complex, but they also have to think of their customers' customers. These are everyday people who are using open banking and are maybe not familiar with it. Charlie has a background as a journalist and copywriter, having worked for companies like Jellyfish and Snack Media. He's been doing marketing for Volt for over 4 years and helped manage a brand refresh, as well as turn their marketing into what it is today. For those of you who don't know Volt, they are a Series B company, open banking infrastructure platform founded in 2019 and currently operating in 33 countries. In this episode, we talk about why truth-telling is an essential quality to their content, how they manage to create content for their customers and their customers' customers, why they focus on organic more than paid, how bringing PR in-house helped bring in leads, and why brand recall is a primary goal of their content strategy, and a lot more. We go into a lot of great details in this episode, so hope you enjoy it. Okay, so the first kind of question that I have for you is, just through my own research, I saw that you used to be a news correspondent and you were kind of in that world of media and everything. So I'm curious about, what do you think you learned during your time in the world of journalism, and how do you think that applies to fintech marketing? Because obviously those worlds overlap a lot, as in there's a lot of common skills and all that. So how do you think that was useful to where you're at now?
Great question. I think I wouldn't attach too much importance to the title of news correspondent, because the company I was working for had a product called Direct News. And then if you worked on that product, you were called a correspondent. But we were set up to be news correspondents in a way. It was always done through a kind of brand marketing lens, however. But that was my kind of first foray into a career job, having done a journalism degree. So I brought that skill set from 3 years at City University in London to that role. And I think that journalist skill set is really important. There's an element of tragedy here, because I think in my heart and the kind of romantic side of my brain would have liked to have become a journalist, but the starting salaries were kind of somewhat prohibitive to staying in London. And also it's, to an extent, it's an industry where you kind of rely on contacts to get your feet in the door and then gradually walk upstairs, which unfortunately, as someone who went to a comprehensive school in a kind of forgotten town, I didn't have those contacts. However, what I did learn was some really good skills, and how they are relevant to fintech marketing is kind of pretty much like nailed on. You can measure the impact of those skills. Fundamentally, I think it's being able to ask the right questions to the right people and know how to extract the right answers. I remember vividly in the second year of university, we had a how to do an interview module where they brought people in from different organizations who were deliberately briefed to be quite difficult. We had to interview them in front of the class of like 25 or 30 people. And it was really challenging, but also quite enjoyable. In the world of fintech marketing, I've spoken about this before, but there's a lot of kind of dense descriptions or hyperbolic taglines. It's difficult cutting through the noise. This is something that people talk, this is almost a cliche in itself, right? How to kind of cut through the noise. But how a journalist skill set can kind of do that is by speaking in kind of clear, plain English where possible, albeit with a brand tone of voice, to bring capabilities to life, bring a brand to life, and therefore hopefully a position in the market that is relevant and tangible to a predefined relevant audience. And that's something I think at Volt we've had a decent amount of success with. We look at some other competitors and it can be, our biggest competitor do a great job of very clearly explaining who they are, but other competitors, and it's normally when your product set gets bigger and your capabilities get wider, it becomes harder to be known for one or two things. You're kind of just a leader in this space. So yeah, we've had real success kind of translating what we do into plain English with that brown tone of voice. And I think as a result, we're now seen as a leader in our space, pay by bank, real-time payments. So yeah, I would say that the journalist mindset has been important in that journey over the last 4 years.
I think like a lot of marketers and especially writers, I'd say deep inside, the dream was to be a journalist, because it's kind of what I always loved was the investigative part of things. So like going out, finding a story, trying to investigate. And I feel like marketers, that's often our job actually, is attribution is a job of investigating and figuring out things and trying to understand, wow, this deal came in, it's enormous. What was that journey like? And trying to put together those like little touch points and everything. So I think it makes sense that there's kind of a connection there in a lot of marketers.
Completely. I mean, the investigative. But yeah, it's really important. And I think that becomes part of a company culture, right? The kind of, I always think that when you have cultures and values, or behaviors, a big behavior should be ask why. A project accelerates and comes out of nowhere. It sounds really cool, but why are we doing it? And it's not because you're a naysayer, it's because you're trying to understand the viability. Is there kind of a commercial imperative attached? Will this selfishly reflect into good marketing communications? And then I think that's also holding people to account, right? Everyone has a particular skill set. By asking why and coming at that question from a particular area of expertise, it holds leadership functions to account, which I think is quite important. If you're able to ask why and investigate why we're launching this product, why we're building this product, for what market, for what vertical, who does the customer look like, what are we up against? This is part of that kind of investigative, yes, we did it, mindset. I think
Nailed it.
Yeah, you're right, it's really important.
There's also a deep, like for me, what I love about marketing is just understanding people, the psychological side of things. And I think journalists as well, they love understanding people. That's why they write stories about them and stuff. So yeah lots of overlaying kind of curiosities there. So one of the main kind of topics we want to talk about in this podcast episode, case study, is content in general. So how, you've said yourself, you're one of the leaders in your space. Marketing is a key part of that. I wouldn't just say from a product perspective, but also from a branding perspective. What role does content play in Volt's marketing strategy? And we'll talk a bit about the whole B2B to C kind of thing in a second. But yeah, how would you say the role of content plays in your marketing?
Yeah, I'd say content's pretty important to what we do. You can always kind of look at what the situation would be for Volt if we didn't have content. It'd be nothing, we'd be a nobody. The brand would effectively cease to exist. But yeah, content for us is what kind of sets us apart in the market. We've got a very clear way, hopefully, in a very individual way of articulating what we do through our content. And I'm a huge believer in kind of substance over style. In fact, the style guide was pretty much the first thing that I created when I came to Volt, because I wanted to get it done, get everybody bought into it, and then dusted. So it's just something we refer to. Occasionally we evolve it when we need to, but it was that kind of foundational thing that gave us kind of practical style points to follow in our writing, in our content, and a specific tone of voice that was not prescriptive, but something to hopefully aspire to, because we thought it was kind of bang on the money. So from that, it's all substance now, right? And we are big believers here in storytelling. Again, like another perhaps marketing cliche, but even this morning I had a call with our CEO, and it's always about the storytelling. And this isn't necessarily kind of, this product does this, we think it will be brilliant for this. Arguably that's a story, but it's not a very interesting one. So we always try to bring use cases and relevancy to our different audiences. Again, another kind of cornerstone of any content strategy is, who are you writing for? Who are you creating content for? And for us, it's quite an interesting kind of varied group of people, merchants, prospective merchants, end users. We're a B2B to C brand, and quite often consumers get forgotten. Investors, journalists, prospective employees is a really kind of interesting, analyst is a really kind of varied kind of use case here. So we have to tell relevant stories to engage all of them, because this all then feeds back into the strength of the Volt brand and how we're perceived in the market. And content is also something that helps us evolve our kind of positioning. We don't remain static. If you're, I don't know why this brand has popped into my head. It has, we'll roll with it. WH Smith, which I think is now rebranded, right? They're that shop.
Really?
Yeah, I can't remember the name, but I saw it. It's something like TG Thompson or something. Very similar to WH Smith. But that's the place where you go to buy pens or notepads or spend $50 on a bottle of water, right? There's no real moving with the times. But that's their brand perception. They've done okay with it. Vault can't afford to ever rest on its laurels because fintech is evolving incredibly quickly. To kind of go down a level or deeper a level, payments is evolving kind of even faster than the fintech landscape with the advent of stablecoins, for example. But where content also has to have a role is the kind of these wider macro trends. I just mentioned stablecoins, for example, is again kind of trying to make sense of them. We saw this in kind of no uncertain terms with open banking in 2018 and PSD2. There was an incredible amount of hype there around what it will facilitate, the different use cases, and a lot of conversation about how it would work. There was very little conversation around the commercial viability of a fintech coming in and building some kind of open banking infrastructure for merchants there to tap into and consumers there to tap into. So we've always tried to, maybe this is me going full circle, talk with substance and granularity around those use cases, and in doing so kind of entrench the viability of the infrastructure that we exist in. And stablecoins is another kind of interesting thing, right? Obviously lots of payments companies are looking at it, but how do we actually avoid the hype or inflate the hype even more? How can, if Vault, for example, created a stablecoin product, then there are kind of potentially a few different avenues we could, in theory, explore here. What's the commercial viability of it beyond the hype? And this is where content, I think, has a massive role to play. So every product we release has a story attached to it, a practical use case, a merchant benefit, but it also has to be commercially viable for us, right? We don't do these things just because they look good. We have to be a sustainably growing, ultimately profitable fintech. And that's where brand positioning kind of helps, but also there has to be truth and substance in that in the end. But I mean, this is all I've really spoken about so far is just the kind of the product content, right? There's so much more that we do, the kind of platforming of our leaders.
I'd be also curious, like, what kind of content are you talking about here? Is this like reports? Is this like, I don't know, social media posts? When you're talking about all this, what does that look like? What kind of content?
I mean, yeah, so primarily our two most successful content types are medium to long form blog posts.
Okay.
And videos. Videos are kind of huge for us. We're big fans of a product explainer video at Vault. Quite a few of the ones that we've done have gone down quite well.
Could you expand a bit on that? What were they? Which products were they? And why do you think they resonated so well?
So Pay2 in Australia.
Yes, I've written pieces about that.
Yeah, so kind of set up by the new payments platform, which was a group of kind of industry stakeholders, including banks. I think Europe and the UK can learn a lot from that, to create this set of kind of account-to-account rails. But actually there was a degree of kind of negativity around how this could actually be taken to market by an ambitious fintech and then for everybody to benefit in terms of commercial viability, user experience, etc., etc. And also it wasn't necessarily clear kind of which industries Pay2 was particularly relevant for. Airlines is a really interesting one because Poly, another instant payment system, kind of disappeared suddenly in 2023. Airlines in Australia are obliged to offer a payment method that doesn't have a surcharging thing, which is a big problem there with credit and debit cards. Anyway, we created a Pay to Explain video, just kind of showing what to expect really from the product. So kind of profiling the UX and the payment flow, and then making it absolutely crystal clear. And within that, kind of explaining the benefits to merchants should they choose to integrate Pay2 with Vault. And then kind of alluding to which verticals this would be relevant for. And very quickly, everybody's favorite fintech influencer, Marcel Vanus, shared it on his LinkedIn and said, I don't want to misquote him. I can try and remember as best as I possibly can, but this is the best Pay to Explain a video I've seen. So that's great. People then use it as a resource as well. And then in terms of longer form content, we had real success with a piece I wrote, which was along the lines of how is open banking being rolled out across the world. Open banking as a zeitgeisty term has a huge amount of interest, but it means different things to different people. Even in the UK, open banking with a capital O and a capital B is essentially how open banking has been implemented kind of as a scheme. With a lowercase o and a lowercase b, it kind of broadly pertains to what open banking actually is: permissive access to your bank account to a third party in order for that third party to provide a service. But obviously different countries are rolling it out in different ways, and I've spent maybe 2 weeks kind of researching the kind of global picture on open banking, and we published that without any kind of like lead generation or kind of marketing cynicism attached. It was just, we know this piece will help people understand the landscape and hopefully they'll remember us on the back of it. It was never intended to be a lead magnet for us. It was almost an altruistic gesture. This is me thinking with a kind of brand marketing lens rather than a demand gen lens, I suppose. Yeah, the listeners can debate whether that's a good or bad thing.
Well, clearly it worked, right?
Yeah, I think, well, a real marker of success then is, I've spoken about this before, is kind of anecdotal evidence and feedback. And payments is a small industry. We don't have competitors per se. We have kind of frenemies. We're friends with the people who are competitors, and we all know each other. And they were sharing this amongst their kind of internal Slack channels and WhatsApp groups. And when I saw that 3 or 4 times, I thought, okay, well, this is now something that is being used as a resource, and as long as it's not plagiarized, it's great. And creating content like this now is even more important with the advent of ChatGPT, which has kind of really accelerated since I wrote that piece. But this is the kind of content that ChatGPT relies on, right, for kind of source material in order to help other people searching for similar things if they don't find this themselves. So I'm also trying my own video content on LinkedIn, which is very different.
I love
to
them.
Anything.
They're so funny.
Kind of whole branded.
You must have so much fun creating them. They look like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean,
although they must take so long to edit. I don't know how.
Actually, my rule is that if they take long to edit, then it's not really going to work, because it has to be like snappy and so I'm in a bit of a tricky spot now. I've kind of run out of ideas.
Oh really?
Yeah, I always wanted to do one on stablecoin, so when I did that I felt happy, but that was about a month ago now, so it's about time that I came up with something else. But I don't know if it's just my massive sense of self-worth and self-importance now coming out. Maybe I'm developing an ego. I really hope I'm not. I hope people can keep me in check. But yeah, Money 2020, I had people coming out to me who had recognized those videos and spoken about them, and that for my own ego, that felt good.
Definitely.
It's content that resonates, right? It's just...
I mean, are you doing it with a purpose, or is it more like this is fun, whatever?
I did it with a real purpose to start with, because Martin Lewis, money saving expert here in the UK, is a great kind of consumer advocate on all things personal finance. He tweeted about Pay by Bank as being something perhaps to be wary of, and that...
I know, I think I saw this.
Yeah, that to me didn't really paint the full picture, and there was a bit of kind of skepticism around consumer protection. I don't want to misquote him, but I think he said there was no consumer protection, which is completely untrue in regards to the Consumer Rights Act and the Payment Services Regulation. So I just wanted to create a light-hearted video in response to that, and that's when I thought, actually, there may be something in this to kind of demystify or challenge preconceptions around Pay by Bank, but it's also a good way to kind of use content to look at what those misconceptions are. And this is where Volt as a brand, I know it was me who did it, but Volt as a brand has a kind of role to play, right? We know our stuff here, and we can help consumers as well as merchants kind of conquer and overcome those misconceptions by truth-telling. And this is the most important thing in content and fintech, is truth-telling. No kind of hyperbole, no exaggeration, no kind of aspirational big vision stuff unless we're talking to investors and we can prove everything. Everyday content, truth-telling, valuable, and then hopefully that translates to us being taken seriously as a brand by our customers.
It sounds like influencers have had a role in kind of getting your content to reach the right people. So you said Marcel van Oost. I guess you're kind of becoming one with your videos.
Definitely not.
I don't know, when you create content, do you have channels in mind? Are you actively targeting influencers? What have you seen are the channels that work best when reaching merchants? Because I think merchants are such a diverse group as well. You've got iGaming, you've got crypto, you've got e-commerce. These people can be either very tech savvy or maybe they're completely on the other end. Like, it's such a wide kind of habits, consumer habits, or consuming content habits. So yeah, how do you think about that?
LinkedIn is kind of by far and away the best channel for us. LinkedIn almost makes it easy because the dearth of kind of original engaging content on a platform that is so well used daily by all of the kind of key players of the ecosystem, all of our prospects and customers, everyone's on it multiple times a day, but there's no great content on it. So it's like the opposite of TikTok or Instagram in that respect, which has a lot of great content, but that's not where our audience lives. So why wouldn't we spend all of our time on LinkedIn creating stuff that's different, that cuts through, because we know that's where everybody lives. So it's almost a gift to us in how it's set up. I think LinkedIn still doesn't really know what it actually is or what purpose it serves. I think maybe no one really knows the answer to that. But while that remains a talking point and a point of uncertainty. It's something that gives us an opportunity to do stuff a little bit differently and hopefully get noticed along the way.
And when you say you make the most of LinkedIn, what does that look like? Is that like, obviously you're posting, do you have people on your team, like, I don't know, the founders or the C-suite who are also posting? Is it LinkedIn ads? Like, how are you trying to make the most of the platform?
I mean, I'm a massive believer in kind of the maximizing, optimizing organic media. Paid media for me has never really done it. Kind of slight lack of sincerity here. I kind of want to tell you a funny story about a paid media opportunity, sponsoring opportunity that came with us recently. Maybe I'll say it if anyone wants to know. Find me on LinkedIn, I'll message you, it's funny.
Well, why don't you share the story? Are you worried it will be misinterpreted?
I mean, it's not really content per se, but it's a paid opportunity where a very kind of well thought of, highly regarded payments event, which I'm personally a really big fan of, great event, is happening kind of relatively soon. We've got a great merchant that we're live with in a great vertical, who are really happy with us, and they're going to be talking on stage about their Vault integration, kind of how it's improved, kind of conversion, share of wallet with open banking. Like, great, really cool. We got offered the chance to sponsor the session. It's basically the open banking session during this event. And I kind of took the call. I was like, yeah, okay, I can see where you want us to sponsor because they'll be talking about us. And then I couldn't really remove the thought from my mind that actually we shouldn't sponsor it because it would look like we've compromised
paid them
editorial integrity of the session. And then they were like, well, if you don't sponsor it, then one of your competitors will. And I was like, well, that to me would be objectively funny guerrilla marketing, and that a competitor sponsors a session where the merchant talks happily and freely about Vault's integration. So this is why I'm always kind of skeptical of kind of paid opportunities, but it is really a point of integrity. And also everybody claims to have access to all the leading decision makers, blah, 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 blah. LinkedIn does that anyway. If you have the right content, you reach the right audience anyway. We do some ABM campaigns, or we target kind of specific roles and specific accounts that have something that they need to do. There's something kind of topical in the industry, and that's where kind of paid ads or paid campaigns come in really handy, but they're incredibly tactical and incredibly topical and incredibly focused. We'd never do like a paid kind of brand marketing campaign.
Okay.
It's all about revenue really with the ABM stuff.
And so what did you do in the end? Did you sponsor the...
We did not sponsor it. And
did a competitor do it?
It's yet to happen.
Okay. It hasn't happened yet. Sorry, I didn't realize.
On the 1st of August, but it will be happening relatively soon. So yeah, we'll have to see.
Very interesting.
See what happens there.
I think I agree with you, right? It makes a lot of sense. Integrity, from an integrity standpoint. And I think like consumers or buyers are more skeptical than ever. Like we are all so much more skeptical because marketing has been in our face for so many decades now, we just don't believe so many things. And so like you just listen, you just talk to your friends or whatever, or even anyone in the industry, and it's constantly like, really, is that actually what you're saying? This? So
yeah. It's how people consume content as well, right?
Yeah.
This is another really big thing that's changed. Why, if you're presented with something that the author or the publisher is paid for, why would they assume that you're duty bound to read it? Why would you be interested in reading it? Even kind of just organic stuff on LinkedIn, people scroll now, right? Scrolling is not a bad thing per se, but this is how we consume stuff now. So it's markers of relevancy and recommendation, right? So someone likes something that you trust and like, or share something, of course you're going to read it. Or of course you're going to watch it because it's had that validation already up front from someone that's seen it. And there's debates around kind of algorithms and certain ethics, I suppose, attached to that. But surely from a content consumption point of view, it helps massively in terms of engagement. If someone's validated it up front, then yeah, you're going to read it, or it's been shared with you or liked, you're going to read it or watch it. That's just the way it kind of taps into human psychology now. It's very different.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd love to talk a bit about like strategy. We've talked a bit about it. Interestingly, organic it sounds like is the main thing here, super important. How do you put together a strategy in terms of what kind of content to create, what topics to cover? And also we could talk a bit about the whole B2B2C and how obviously you have to create content for merchants, but also for end customers. And I'm very interested in how you do that and how you think about, because content for consumers is so different than merchants as well.
So content strategy is dependent on kind of two things. One is kind of brand recall, I suppose. So someone says open banking or pay by bank, we want Vault to be the brand that pops into their head, that they recall in their memory. So that to me is kind of massively important. The other way more kind of boring point is resource and what is kind of practically possible on any given day, week or month. For me, it's all about looking at the state of play within the ecosystem that we find ourselves in, which is real-time account payments or pay by bank. So kind of two things there, like what are the zeitgeisty things in terms of talking points? Is pay by bank safe? When will commercial VRPs be a reality? Why don't consumers use it versus cards? All the things that people are talking about. How can Vault have a point of view and answers to these questions based on how far we've come and the data and the proof points? And if there are things that do need more work, then how can we talk about that in a way that facilitates kind of meaningful collaboration with the industry? So this is where PR comes in really handy, industry commentary and truth-telling, as well as kind of certain helpful blog posts that play into merchant questions. Again, how safe is pay by bank? Does open banking facilitate refunds? All of these things. And then the other side of the kind of content strategy piece that plays into this kind of brand recall goal, I suppose, is our kind of evolving capabilities and what we're launching and why and in which markets. And this is where use cases and stories, real and kind of hypothetical, come in really handy. So I speak to a lot of our merchants about how they're using Vault, what they need kind of going forward, what's up with our product team on what we're creating, what we're building and why, our market presence. So it's almost kind of market reach and product depth, I suppose, and how those kind of facilitate different content types. And then from that, we've got a calendar of really cool stuff. We've got a really good runway. I think in the next 6 months, probably the most exciting periods in Vault's kind of content marketing history, which is, I don't say lightly, we've got so many cool stories to start telling, and I'm mega excited about that. So yeah, that's in a nutshell kind of how I approach content strategy.
And when it comes to like the end consumer, how do you get the content in front of them? Or is it not even supposed to? Or you just give it to the merchant and you're like, use this when you're...
I mean, one of the first things I did when I joined Vault 4 years ago was create a Pay with Vault page, which was a consumer-facing page. And I've had people who it was difficult getting approval for that because our leadership team always believed that we were B2B, and we are. That's who we sell to. But if consumers don't choose our product at checkout, then we don't really make as much revenue, right? A lot. So we need consumers to buy in to Vault or buy into pay by bank, whatever it ends up being at checkout. So having that kind of central resource that we can point people to, because this is a question that merchants quite often ask, is, well, why? I have this with, we might sell an integration and then that goes ahead, everybody's happy. And then if it's a larger enterprise merchant, they'll normally have a marketing or branding team or a product team who would then want to speak to me. And the first question I tend to get is, well, why would our customers use Vault? And it's a question that ideally should have been had before, but hadn't, because in this kind of B2B psychology, tech
interesting,
dominates. And then it kind of comes back to me to talk about it. Quite often they want us to fund a campaign and they want to extract money. So they deliberately try to sound negative.
Oh, wow.
Not negative, just kind of their commercially savvy marketing departments, right, which actually I've got a lot of respect for. But it's us having answers to these questions, so having kind of, I can have a verbal response to that, but then also having resources on our blog. So we do kind of consumer-facing pieces there around safety. We kind of have, in our documentation, we have kind of tips and tricks for optimizing conversion and actual kind of share of wallet through kind of like different kind of small brand assets, like little tooltips that pop out, kind of interstitial explainer pages that can be built into the checkout journey. So we've also kind of commissioned research into the terminology, even colors and icons that consumers in different markets respond to. It's probably one of our biggest challenges is optimizing our pay-by-bank solution in different markets. Even that terminology means different things in different jurisdictions. Pay-by-bank in Germany, as far as I understand, is more kind of instantly relevant to kind of paying your utilities bills rather than initiating an e-commerce purchase or a kind of wallet top-up, whatever it is. So we've had to kind of dial into that kind of consumer psychology as well. And then around the other market nuances of or which markets are dominated by cards, how it's going to be harder for us to...
Yeah, I mean, you're changing behaviors.
Exactly, yeah. In the Netherlands, it's different because Ideal is a payment method. It's so prevalent and so dominant at checkout. For us, is that a good thing because it's an account-to-account system that people are used to using? Or is it a bad thing because everyone's just going to go to Ideal? So these are the things that we're kind of testing and researching and optimizing as we go on. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a fun part of the kind of psychology side of things. If you're really into that, then really understanding what makes someone pick one option. I mean, I notice it now whenever, obviously, because I'm using Pay by Bank. And I remember the first time I saw open banking was a couple of years ago to pay my taxes. And I was like, oh, I paid my... And I was telling all my friends and my partner, they're like, no one cares. Like, this is so... But this is the thing of working in fintech.
That's the thing, right? No one cares about open banking. As a thing, if you're a consumer, open banking is irrelevant. And it should be irrelevant. It's just the thing that empowers the cool thing that you've done. My wife uses the Emma app to kind of manage finances, and she loves the Emma app, but she would never say, I love open banking. There's a Financial Times article recently, which was very misleadingly framed around the London fintech scene, but actually it was just a massive critique of open banking and how it's failed, and saying that consumers aren't aware, three quarters of consumers in the UK aren't aware of open banking is a completely moot.
But they don't need to be aware. Yeah, exactly.
Stuff like, exactly. Paying your tax return bill more easily because you can just be redirected to your bank account because that's how you have to pay. You can't use a credit card, right, in that situation. So, yeah, exactly. You lost your driving license, need to renew it. You can do it now with checkout from your bank account. You pay your credit card bill. It's all open banking, but it's not a term that consumers need to be familiar with. Personally.
Yeah, exactly. Well, one final topic I'd love to cover, because this is obviously, I mean, it's getting more and more complex because of AI and ChatGPT, but also just generally, which is tracking results or like reporting on what's working or what isn't. And I just think in general, for marketing to work, you need to be able to understand a little bit what's working, what isn't. So how do you think about that? How do you try and report on how content is working? Or are you a lot more like, just trust the process, we know? How do you manage that side of things?
Yeah, weirdly, I probably shouldn't admit this, but I always find this a difficult question to ask because of the amount of variables attached, right? So,
exactly.
From like an SEO perspective and visibility and how someone who lands on our website organically, how then a user journey is facilitated. Really, we are a relatively small company compared to our players, so we have to trade on kind of brand related search terms. If it's very difficult for us to break into kind of non-branded search terms, especially now. I genuinely cannot remember the last time I clicked through to a web page from a Google search because I rely on Gemini and ChatGPT for, I mean, in all seriousness, around 100% now.
I can believe it.
And if I don't need to click through, I'm using an app. I'm using Depop or eBay, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So we're kind of having to reflect that as well. Volt is also an ambiguous brand online. There are a few different Volts doing different things. There was a neobank in Australia called Volt. We got mistakenly tagged when they went under. So as long as we do measure things, like in PR especially is kind of much easier to measure. And I'm a big believer in commercializing the PR function by talking about use cases, how they've helped particular merchants. And we've actually, since bringing the PR function in-house, this is another podcast episode because I could talk about this for ages, but we got rid of PR agencies. Goodbye, PR agencies. Thank you for your hard work. We brought them in-house, and in controlling the narrative, we now generate good leads, like 4 or 5 leads from each press release that we put out. We never did that before.
Wow. Wait, so we need to expand a bit on this because this is very interesting. I have rarely heard of fintech companies bringing PR in-house, like at an earlier stage. So what was your thinking behind that? I mean, you said narrative, but why did you make that decision? And then that's so interesting. How are you able to connect that you're bringing leads from these press releases? Yeah,
so we kind of, I say me here, I'm exposed to the goings on here and what people care about, what they are worried about, the things they're doing to kind of celebrate or overcome those two things. You can probably tell at any one moment I've got a million things flying into my own head, and from that there are so many good talking points that me kind of outsourcing that to an agency is just never going to work. So I'm like, well, what are you thinking about today? And then suddenly you have a meet. I don't want to badmouth agencies, but then we'd have a weekly meeting with 5 people and me talking about things they've pitched. They're waiting to hear back from the journalist. It just wasn't working. And then they'd write a press release and it would be, yes, optimized for journalists, but it would be completely missing the nuance and the intrigue that should be contained within a press release. And my God, there are enough bad press releases in financial services. So we just thought, well, you know what, let's just bring it all in-house. Let's use a tool where we can target journalists, build out media lists. So we have an effective kind of distribution mechanism, and then the copywriting, the press release, I do it myself. And from doing that, when we publish it, again, this is the beauty of LinkedIn, when we publish them to LinkedIn, we get messages to the Vault account, genuinely hand on heart, 3 or 4 per press release saying, we are a competitor of X, please give us a demo. And this is now a theme. It's not a one-off. It's happened 3 or 4 times. So it's a big win for us commercializing the PR function, and not in a cynical way, in a way that actually helps similar companies with you can benefit from the products that we're talking about. Because we're not just releasing a product, we're talking about how it's being used and why we created it. So it has real relevance. So this is where it's interesting getting results. I've also massively reduced our marketing budget over the last 6 or so months, and in terms of tools and the paid media thing that we touched on earlier, and our number of leads through the website, which is at the moment really that's all I really care about, is how many high quality leads are coming in through the website plus via our PR channels, and that has maintained at kind of a steady rate, and it's always reflective of kind of where we are as a business, how loud we are, but that has maintained the level that we need it to be at, while also getting rid of all the stuff that I think a lot of high growth fintech brands think they need. But this would be like my biggest takeaway, is just look at your marketing automation platform. Do you really need to spend that much money? Look at AI native alternatives, of which there are 5 or 6 already that are really good. Do you need agencies to prop you up? Do you need to make noise at all times? Or could you just not post on LinkedIn for 3 weeks and then post something really good? Like, these were the things that actually I think marketing departments in fintech need to think about, because you can get a lot of return on modest spend if you just challenge kind of conventional wisdom, I think.
Yeah, no, I love that. And just on that, because I'm curious, and it's a big topic right now, you said it yourself, 100% of your searches are Gemini and like ChatGPT. How are you at Volt thinking, oh, our customers are probably, or prospects are doing the same? Are you trying to optimize for those platforms? How are you thinking about it? I know it's very early stage.
Yeah, we are. I think I've started to think about, so brand mentions are massively important. I mean, before, it sounds like we're talking about a different age. It kind of was now, that's where we're heading. With the media, it was always like, you know, if you got coverage in City AM or Forbes, we'd always want a follow link rather than a do not follow link for the link juice. Now, sadly, it doesn't really matter anymore. It's brand mentions from kind of high authority websites. I think ChatGPT has nothing to do with Google, does it? It doesn't scrape it at all. It scrapes Bing.
Well, I mean, it's supposed to scrape Bing, but there's more and more evidence that actually it relies a lot on the Google index. There's a few theories here. People think that maybe OpenAI are developing their own index, which is very similar to the Google one, or they're double checking. So they're doing Bing and then Google. But if you look, there's a lot of people have been reporting that if you look at what ChatGPT generates, is now very similar to Google. So I think they're switching a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's good to know. But yeah, basically, so the kind of on the PR side, we're trying to get as much coverage as possible and play into what people are searching for now. So somebody could be searching for, well, I've heard a lot about hello ChatGPT.
Stablecoin.
I'm basically a boomer. I still say hello to ChatGPT every time I read it. What are the commercial use cases for a fintech break-in? Like, these are the things that we need to start talking about, addressing kind of the open banking negativity. It's gone quiet with open banking. Why has it gone quiet? That's a kind of a search term on ChatGPT, isn't it? So yeah, maximizing kind of media coverage with our leadership team, talking about these things, getting those brand mentions. Hopefully ChatGPT then recognizes us as being a point of authority. And then to be able to do a lot more of is those kind of longer form articles that actually feed the content that these LLMs serve, because they rely on this kind of high authority, written by humans content, right? Otherwise it would just start recycling slop. Like, is this not the biggest danger right now with kind of where the content world is heading? So as long as we do our tiny little bit in the grand scheme of things, then I think we can help. I think someone did a search for pay to providers in Australia on ChatGPT, and Volt came up as like number 1 with the link and the citation. I was like, yeah, okay, that's good. So it's
Are you seeing inbounds via LLMs? Like, I don't know how you track it. We track it with, how did you hear about us? Like a form field. But are you seeing more and more of your website leads coming via?
Right, but not at the moment. Not at the moment. Yeah. I hope
maybe because Yeah, I've shared this at our conference a few weeks ago, but we're seeing some of our clients like 20 this last month, July, 30% of their website inbounds are from LLMs. So it's growing very quickly. I don't know, I haven't checked when people submit a form, how did you hear about us?
We do. I can't remember what it says. It might just be search. So
contact.
Maybe we need to.
I'm just looking. Oh, you've got a lot of different types of inquiries, so maybe that's.
Yeah.
So in the contact sales one, I don't see ones, but maybe that's not the main contact form. I don't know. But the thing is that if you just use refer, so the UTM link, that's often not enough because a lot of people don't click. So that's why having a self-attribution, basically, it just might help give a bit more visibility on whether people are using LLMs.
Yeah,
because
we've got an action for it. No.
It's like, it's crazy as I'm saying, like 20, 30%. We're like, this is a whole new channel. And so that's why we're spending a lot of resources now testing, playing around with it, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't.
Yeah,
but
no, absolutely is. I need to look at kind of where that would apply kind of more granular level, if like Pay2, for example, is being a thing that we're being highlighted for as kind of a provider. So that's a bit of homework for today.
Yeah, bit of action points. I think I like what you say though about covering like recent or current topics. I think that's an interesting strategy for appearing on LLMs because they already have a recency bias in the sense that these LLMs often, they will prioritize content that was published in the last month rather than last 6 months or 1 year, whereas SEO is the opposite, right? Where the longer it's been published, the more authority it has. So it's an interesting tactic because just by covering very recent topics, you're a lot more likely to be, that's interesting. I might test that more, see if that has an influence.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
sure it does.
If only we had kind of more resource to do that justice, but I think it will, as we do dive a little bit more into the data, we can then look at a business case and this is where the world is heading. We need to reflect now our kind of content output in line with this kind of shifting trend, because it's all about the discoverability is changing completely. Even like the concept of a website is by virtue of kind of clicking through and that not being a thing anymore. Are we going to see like websites disappear because they're just not needed anymore?
No, or they will be just built for bots. Like this is I need to do an episode on just this topic. Will the content we create only be for bots or LLMs? Because then the LLM interprets, like this is the first time in the world of SEO where you're creating content that then will be manipulated and interpreted, and you don't know how that will be interpreted to the end user. And that end user might never read your content. That's pretty mind-blowing to me. And then I'm like, we could be in a world where we only create content for bots. And is that a bad thing? Maybe not. I'm not sure. But
well, from almost like from a copyright perspective and the use of original source material without express permission, that is kind of potentially problematic, right?
That's already, there's a bunch of publishers that are taking OpenAI to court already about this. And anyway, it's changing every week. It's pretty crazy. Right, so this has been so interesting. Thank you so much, Charlie. I think we could talk for hours, but I know we are at our time limit. So I'd just like to finish off with, what's one piece or multiple pieces of content that you're the proudest of?
Good question. I am going to reference that long form open banking around the world piece because it felt like the only piece of its kind on the internet. And I'm proud of that because it just became a resource, right? It's not necessarily about vanity metrics, how many people are engaging it, how many leads did it facilitate. It was an interesting experiment in terms of wanting to create a resource that was evergreen for as long as possible and was interesting, people engage with it. And I think it did that. And then the other thing I'm most proud of for completely different reasons is the stablecoin video that I did on my own LinkedIn because my comedy hero, Bob Mortimer, has a song called Slender People. You can listen to it on Spotify. And I somehow managed to remove his voice from that song and use the track and the tune to do a kind of stablecoin explainer video. And I made the words rhyme and everything. So I was happy with that. And it felt like a different way to explain something that's quite topical. And some people clicked like on it on LinkedIn. So that obviously released dopamine and made me happy, right? So maybe I've got a musical career. Maybe I'm completely deluded, but maybe, this is the future for me, is having a musical career.
Sure, maybe you should put them on TikTok. Not? I'm curious about how, you don't know, I'm sure there's some open banking people on there.
TikTok, I occasionally I have an account which I never use, and occasionally I open the app and I delete the app because I'm just like, this is not for me.
Too much.
Too much. I'm going to be 40 this year. So I don't belong there.
you need to protect your attention spans as well. I feel like that thing is terrible for our attention span. So, but yeah, that's the one video I didn't watch. I watched the one where you're rapping, and I thought that was really impressive. But I haven't seen the stablecoin.
Yeah, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, so I have to watch the stablecoin one because I know that's such a hot topic. Every finance influencer is going. Sorry. Okay, good.
I enjoyed it way more.
Okay, cool. I'll take a look. No, I love that. Amazing. Well, thanks so much, Charlie. I really appreciate you jumping on. This was a fascinating discussion. I think we went into a lot of different topics, but super useful, super interesting. So yeah, thanks again for coming on.
No, pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening. You can find show notes and information about guests at fintechmarketinghub.com/podcast. And finally, huge thanks to Arama.tv for producing this podcast. We look forward to having you on our next episode.